Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Brock Beard from lastcar.info, the post-race show that comes on after the race is over with, or in this case, a day later here, wrapping up the action at Sears Point here on Behind the Wall. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in for this special edition of the show. Quite a bit to wrap up here. We're going to have trivia a little bit later tonight. I got a little giveaway that's going on with that, so those of you who'd like to stick around a little later in the show, we'll jump into that. Got a lot to cover before we get to that. Definitely want to talk about the Cup Series, Xfinity Series, and even a little bit of the Arca West here as well. But first and foremost, just want to thank everybody for following along this weekend. This was meaning myself and Lastbro, our 29th time attending the NASCAR events over at the Sonoma Raceway, or as I prefer to still call it, Sears Point. Just had a tremendous weekend. I met so many people. Probably more than any other race that I've attended. And I've met quite a few people on these races, especially Kansas, earlier this year. Met quite a few people that were fans of the website and following everything. But here, I mean, my goodness, there was just not enough time, literally. And anybody I did miss on this weekend, I do apologize. I'm sure there were other people at the Tweet Up and so forth there. Just a really busy weekend, but fantastic to see what a great turnout there was. And just great to be able to talk racing with so many people. So many people that are passionate about not just the Last Place website, but also the videos here. And in particular, After Allen, which just wrapped up last week. We'll talk a bit about that on the show here as well, since part 3 dropped since our last show after Gateway. Quite a bit here in the meantime. Definitely wanted to bring out the Raja Caruth shirt here after a big thanks to Raja for retweeting that message there that they had him over at the Spire Hauler, but the NASCAR Classics one. Hopefully that'll still be the case at future races. I can't speak for Iowa or the upcoming events here. But definitely a positive, because I know that got a lot of interest, and myself included there too. So we'll have that as well. Just a tremendous weekend. I mean, every time you go to a racetrack, it is always so much better in person than it is what you see on TV there. But I've always been adamant that Sears Point it's basically an entirely different track from what you see on TV, especially in these recent years. I know the track has its share of detractors. I think that it's not really that competitive, but even when you have long green flag runs out there, there is so much that's going on, and anything could be just one moment from being a critical incident. It seems like the incident where Josh Bilicki ran into the tire stacks in 2021, being kind of rediscovered every year. It's like, yeah, that happened. It's like, well, a lot of times the craziest stuff you see that happens at the track is stuff you just don't get shown on TV, and that's a lingering issue with NASCAR on Fox. Is now they've concluded their 2024 portion of the schedule this year, and the NBC portion of the schedule begins this weekend with Iowa. But this race in particular, though, had so much going on. I know there was a lot of cautions that slowed the action in the opening laps, that being very different from more recent races there. We've seen opening stages go caution-free before, pit strategy being kind of at a minimum, where you had a lot of the stage cautions kind of planning everything out, and maybe it comes down to just faking one time on pit road, like the Kevin Harvick, Martin Truex battle of a few years ago. But this one really felt more like a much more old school Sears Point race, even up to maybe about 2007 or so, where it comes down to, in the final run, the final green flag run, even if it's 20, 30 laps or so, a couple different drivers on very different strategies and who's going to prevail. We have seen, because of a lot of the strategies, whether it was Jeff Bodine counting his race backwards, which he pioneered in his win at Watkins Glen in 1996, or whatever other strategies people work out, this felt like a very old school race in that sense, that we did have a couple of drivers on very different strategies. And one that was leading, that was on older tires in a different situation there, just trying to hang on for the lead. Got flashbacks to Jerry Nadeau's deal in 2002, or the Jamie McMurray-Juan Montoya battle in 2007, Ricky Rudd versus Tony Stewart in 2005. It seemed to be a lot of races in the sport's past came down to that. And we also seen drivers that maybe qualified well back in the pack, leading a good portion of the race while that strategy worked out. I believe in the 2000 season, Kenny Wallace, who was not a top road course driver in any means in his, at least in his Cup Series career, led several laps in the number 55 car, but ultimately didn't have the right strategy that Jeff Gordon had to pull off the win. That same race seeing Sterling Marlin finish in the second spot. So I found it very compelling, especially in the closing stages, to get down to a situation where you had Chris Buescher, Martin Truex Jr., and Kyle Larson each trying to outwit each other and seeing how much time they had left. And luckily we had a long enough stretch here to actually see how it was going to play out. And we didn't have any cautions really manipulate the outcome of that. I don't think a late race restart probably would have changed it too much in terms of Kyle Larson's chances. He certainly seemed to have the best car at the closing stages of it. But as Denny, and we were listening to Denny Hamlin's podcast on the way back today, quite surprising how it shook out, that he had to lose some spots there on pit road, not as many as he would have lost with the caution coming out early, but then working his way back up there and seeing if he had enough time. Outside of about, about 5 or 6 laps to go there before the pass that Truex had on Buescher in the closing stages, and then very soon after that, Larson getting the lead from Truex. And then the other thing that we usually see at this track, drivers running out of fuel. Hearing some rumblings from some of these teams here that, one stage of a race would be X number of laps, but the fuel run was going to be about 1 or 2 laps short of that. And what kind of an effect was that going to have on different teams out there? That was certainly the case for Martin Truex. It looked like it was also the case for Kyle Busch coming off the final corner there. It was a dramatic finish and an interesting way to have it play out. Kyle Larson may have had the lead and taken it with authority there from both Truex and Buescher at the closing stages there. But again, any of these races can really turn themselves on their head there. So kudos to Larson for pulling off his second win at Sears Point there, his first since 2021. He's now won in the next gen car as well as the previous car in the series, which is pretty surprising there. Michael McDowell taking home the second spot. Buescher back to third as Truex ran out of fuel and had to creep across the line. I actually didn't know that Truex had actually run out on that final lap. I was filming the cars coming through turn 11, and I posted that video earlier today here, kind of catching up on some of the other stuff that I hadn't shared yet from the weekend. And Truex ran out of gas, but he looked like he was up to speed just because turn 11 is so tight. But obviously the onboard showing that he had run out of gas exiting turn 10 into turn 11. Not the worst place it could happen, as Marcus Ambrose could certainly attest to back in 2010 there. But regardless, dropped him all the way to the tail end of the lead lap. The initial scoring actually didn't credit him with completing that final lap, but obviously we see, from the footage there, that he did ultimately just do just enough just to get across the stripe, which is, again, we've seen drivers not quite be able to make that far. I believe Larry Gunselman mentioned in his Rise of the Field Fillers interview that in 2004 he had to come down pit road at the very end of it to get some fuel. And at the same time, Rusty Wallace's car was stranded on track. Thinking of Juan Montoya creeping across the line. I think it was in 2013 in Truex's, ironically, with Truex winning for the first time. So a lot of drama there at the end and a lot of incidents, and some of them also kind of throwbacks in themselves. We saw Cam Waters have that spin in practice. Thankfully missed both the barriers there, exiting turn 1 just by the skin of his teeth. Reminiscent of not only the big wrecks that we saw in 1999 between both Ken Schrader and Steve Park flipping after the tire barriers were in a different spot back then, or if you think back to Mark Martin in 1989, when he left pit road with a loose wheel came off and the car ended up flipping over, entering that first corner there. That corner has had caught a lot of errant vehicles through there. And then you think back more recently to anybody that just gets off of course a little bit on the approach to turn 2, whether it's Jerry Nadeau on the outside pole trying to beat Jeff Gordon into the corner, or it's Jamie McMurray spinning out in 2006, or Tony Stewart swinging wide in 2007. Saw that with Austin Cindric spinning and actually catching some air a little bit there. Sounded like it was a really brutal hit once he actually landed back on the ground there from the onboard there. Still the stiffness of the next-gen car showing that it's still an issue, at least in some of these other incidents there. But Cindric ending up able to continue after that incident, but not after a pretty hard landing there in the process. But your top five in this one: Larson in the lead, Michael McDowell in second, Chris Buescher in third, Chase Elliott fourth, and Ross Chastain fifth after spinning out Kyle Busch in turn 4, and then Busch again running out of fuel off of turn 11 there coming to the finish. I did catch footage there of the 8-car slow. Now, that's the thing that surprised me about the 19 slowing. I first saw McDowell getting around Truex. I figured he just kind of just got around him. I was like, wow, how do you manage that? But again, it turned out that was a very different scenario there. So you had a couple cars really creeping down the line there at the finish. And that may not seem like it's that long of a distance, but I assure you, the distance between the exit of turn 11 and the finish line, you can't even see the finish line if you're just literally standing there in the middle of the track there, as I was looking there as well. Speaking of turn 11, I did express concern, as a lot of people did, about the addition of those jersey barriers in turn 11 and how that was going to change not only the complexion of the race, but the possibility of pretty serious accidents through there. Fortunately, it seems like most of those concerns were pretty unfounded, as the drivers seemed just as able to stay clear of that. However, there were two very big exceptions in the Cup Series race that really showed the potential of there being something else happening. Both in the case of Ty Gibbs and in Josh Berry, those two incidents could have played out very differently if you just had tire stacks in that case. Would you have had problems with drivers encroaching on that or shortcutting the course? That could be left up to debate. I think the concern was much more in turn 4 with the painted portion of the track out there. I know that Denny Hamlin was voicing that out very much from last year's part of that. We'll talk more about Hamlin here in a second there for sure. But the Ty Gibbs situation where, I didn't see this live. I was hanging out with a couple of friends over there in the corner there. And we were having a great time over there, by the way. Turn 11 is just one of the best views out there if you can get down to pit road. I hated that they got rousted out of there because I thought that was absurd. I wish that could have worked out better because we were just having a great time just hanging out there watching the traffic go by. Because I think it still is. I think we talked about this on the show last week about, how that's the signature corner on the track, and yet it doesn't get that much visibility. It doesn't have its own grandstands. It has more... just like a permanent facility that doesn't really, it's more the Save Mart promotional area there, which is kind of a different deal from everything else. But given, of course, their long history in the event, I guess they were able to stake their claim to that portion of the track there very quickly. But thinking back again to the barriers in turn 11 there, there was visible damage to the barrier there where Ty Gibbs bounced off the wall there. Seemed like just a glancing blow there, but however, the damage to the right front was evident when he went into turn 1. The car wouldn't turn, and he made a pretty hard hit with the jersey barriers there. And then the Josh Berry situation there, where after Bubba Wallace reprised Kyle Busch's incident in 2011, where he swung wide off the corner and kept the car straight. In this case, a little bit of a log jam started up behind him. Looked like Harrison Burton got in the back of Berry. Berry couldn't slow for the corner and just slid right into traffic. Turned about 6 or 7 cars sideways in there. Really did some serious damage to Austin Dillon's car in particular, which didn't clear the crash clock. So we saw all kinds of chaos out there. It's unfortunate to have so many cautions take that long, or the fact that local cautions are still not an issue. I think that would have made the race still compelling despite the number of yellows here. I could definitely see the frustration of watching on TV where you have a lot of cautions there. But regardless, what was happening under green, I think it was so easily reminiscent of a lot of classic races, not just from the distant past, but even the recent past here, that it was interesting. But again, I think that in that same sense, both Berry's incident and Gibbs' incident would have played out very differently if we just had the tire stacks out there. You think back to 2012 when Kurt Busch was going through turn 11 there and, actually glanced off the wall there driving for Phoenix Racing, and it knocked the rear end loose there. And, the car just picked up a handling issue that prevented him from challenging Clint Boyer for the lead, and ultimately cost him the second spot as Tony Stewart got around him there in the closing stages. But regardless, put on a fine showing there. Perhaps that would have been the case with this car. It's hard to tell with the issues with the toe link that are still a problem these days. You still had That kind of a situation there with the 54 car. I don't know if Bush's hit was the same thing that Gibbs experienced here, if it would have done the same amount of damage. But I would have to think that a concrete barrier is going to do a lot more damage to these cars than just some tires are going to. But regardless, it really did a number on the 54. Was kind of interested in how that played out, kind of following the crew even working on the car, I guess, after the DVP expired, showing the DVP is the reason the 54 fell out of the race. They were still working on that right front afterwards. And then I believe about 30 laps into the race, pushed it all the way to the end of the garage area and got it to an unmarked hauler that they loaded up afterwards. I'm sure sending that back to the shop while they had other cars swapped out for the next week here. It was interesting to see some of the Joe Gibbs teams actually swapping out their cars on race morning. I didn't see any other teams doing that. That's why it stood out when, kind of saw those pictures there of looked like whichever car for Hamlin and another one there for Truex there, although it was Ty Gibbs' crew that was helping out with it at the time, just kind of swapping those out. Those must have come from that white hauler. I don't know that for sure, but it looked like that was the case. And then any other cars that were just too damaged or needed further examination, like that 54 certainly did from the race today. It's just kind of interesting to see where all that shakes out, because a lot of that stuff you just don't get shown. So I hope that came across well on social media. So we got that covered there at the same time. But with Josh Berry's incident, same situation. The problem with putting those barriers there, especially for as long as it is you get slid into that wall. It's just the car's just going to keep going and going, and that wall is not going to scrub off any speed. It just kind of channels you to just go straight into that corner. And we've seen countless cars spin out that turn. That turn's designed for somebody to just get under somebody else and flick them off the corner. And then luckily there's usually enough space afterwards. Even in the Gilligan's Island era, the entrance to Gilligan's Island would allow you to kind of get around any cars that would spin out in that area. And you'd be able to have a situation where it wouldn't just be a complete log jam. Although sometimes that would happen as well. But here, it just seemed like Barry's car just could not stop itself. And it's surprising that more cars weren't damaged from that, or at least not as seriously as it looked like Austin Dillon's, and I suppose also Cam Waters, since he was right in the middle of that there at the same time. But definitely resulted in a bit of issues there at the same time. But all of this after our last place finisher for the race, Denny Hamlin. Would you believe it? In his 666th Cup Series start, completes the fewest laps of his NASCAR career in general, I believe they said. Not just in the Cup Series, but in the top 3 series. I believe he completed 14 laps at a Pocono race there and dropped out of this one. This time just 2 laps, which was actually pretty good for me because my batteries on my scanner my scanner were going out. I only had 2 AAA batteries to replace it. I'm already thinking at the start, it's like, okay, maybe if I switch out 2 of them, it'll still kind of work. But I'm not sure. But luckily that wasn't necessary, at least for that portion of it there. But regardless, very surprising. As much as anybody else, I didn't see any indication that seemed to be that there was any trouble with the 11. He was about mid-pack in practice. About mid-pack in qualifying. Wasn't really a spectacular weekend, especially after winning the pole last year. But it seemed like he was still, going to be somewhat of a factor in this race. I know he's very down on his road course abilities, and this certainly didn't help in that regard. Just listening to his podcast earlier today. But regardless, as he said himself in his interview, there was no warning, no indication at all that anything was wrong with it. He lost a couple spots on the first lap there or so. Didn't seem to indicate that the car wasn't performing well. And then something let go in the bottom of the engine. And when it went big. And we've seen so few engine failures in the next gen era, it seems. You think back to Darlington when Kyle Busch had his engine problems out there or something of that nature. Very rare, and very rare to see it this early in a race as well. I know Bubba Wallace had an engine failure in the first next-gen race out here a few years ago, but even that was later in the event. This one here, it was still a pretty tight battle at the back of the pack there with Kaz Grala and John Hunter Nemechek and a lot of them, and I was still kind of focusing on them and listening to the officials channel, and then the officials were saying that there were possible fluid on the track and a car stopped in turn 2, and was very surprised, myself and the group I was with there at the time, looking at the big screen there in turn 11 and seeing the 11 car stopped up there. Made for a short day. Big thanks to Denny Hamlin to speak to media afterwards. Last year, myself and Steven Stump over at Front Stretch were the only ones that were interviewing Hamlin when he finished last in that race, because it happened so late in the event, I suppose. He was the first car out after, I think he completed about, 90 or 80 to 90% of that race there before dropping out. So that was kind of a crazy deal there. But just kind of worked out that way where it was bizarre. But this time around, it was more media attention. We saw PRN down there and Fox and others. And big thanks to him for doing the interview, because I know that's got to feel ridiculous where you're out of the race that early. It's just a catastrophic failure that you could do nothing about. You have no sense of, the track conditions or anything. And I didn't really have a follow-up question for him either. I think Steven and the others that were there did a fine job covering that. And, so from there, it was just, there's a couple of approaches. I thought at first about just sitting in the media center and just watching the rest of the race there as a fan, which I tried to do for a portion of it. But the garage turned into a very busy place. Maybe not quite as busy as it was in the Xfinity Series race, and we'll talk about that too, or as busy as Pit Road was with the Arca West drivers dropping out of the event as well. It got very busy. You had the 54 in there. You had Briscoe dropping out, and so many cars falling out of the race there that really kind of lost track of where the drivers went off to. I was trying to follow up on what happened to Justin Haley and Josh Berry in the closing stages. I could pretty much estimate that Barry was something from the result of that incident in turn 11. That must have done a number on the car, and indeed it's listed as suspension in the results. But the steering failure for Justin Haley was surprising, given that he was in the top 10 early in the race there. Kind of reminded me of how well he was doing at Kansas in the last race that we covered there, and unfortunately dropped further back in the order in that event there too. Luckily didn't have the mechanical issues he had here, but again, it's unfortunate that the Jacob Construction car ended up in the 33rd spot there. But Denny Hamlin, your last place finisher, the 9th of his Cup career, the 2nd in a row at Sears Point, the first driver to do that since Tom Hubert got 3 in a row in 2004, 5, and 6. We will see next year if Denny Hamlin matches that feat. I guess that'll be one story that we'll be following for that one there. But Ty Gibbs, Austin Dillon, Cameron Waters, and Chase Briscoe rounding out your bottom 5. Cameron Waters had just a gorgeous car out there. I mean, I really hope the pictures came across where they had the different the multinational flags there on the side of the car there. They did a really creative job there with the paint scheme, and it really stood out. It's unfortunate that it didn't have a good run out there. Good to see the number 60 car out at Sears Point in general, giving you kind of memories back to again. This was very appropriate to be kind of our throwback weekend unofficially. It ended up being reminding me of the No Fear Racing entry that Boris Said had back in the day. We'll talk about Seds as well in the Xfinity portion of this. But Cam Waters finishing in the 35th spot out with crash damage. Although it's surprising he was listed as crash damage. I mean, was he involved? I was in the garage so much, it was really hard to track what was actually happening. I wasn't really watching the race on my phone. Was there a second incident that Cam Waters got into? Definitely mention it in the chat if you had on there, but I hope that I'm not exactly sure what the case was. When the car came in, it didn't look that damaged to me, but maybe there was a tow link issue or something else was happening there. It's listed as a crash and not a DVP issue, so I know there's not that. But Briscoe then out of the race there with transmission issues, on top of knocking the rear end of his car off. I don't know if Fox ever showed what happened to the 14 either. It seemed like every replay they were showing showed Stenhouse spinning across the track there in the S's, but didn't show the 14. So I don't know what was going on there except classic Fox stuff there. The garage area was busy right up to the end. I mean, Barry falling out. I was checking on Justin Haley, and then I see Barry's car is already sitting there in the garage, like about 4 or 5 stalls over from him there. Just a crazy deal there at the end. And then on top of all of this, to have cars running out of fuel coming to the finish line there too. Joey Logano winning the pole, being very, bringing up that he, probably the fact that he always wins on these new venues. He's winning, doing well on these tracks here where, they have new pavement, that he won out at Watkins Glen when they had new pavement. Then won the pole here in this one. He gets damaged in the S's there, drops well back in the order, and finishing back in 21st, after leading 16 laps. So a difficult day for him. But, among the drivers you have to really be proud of here in this one, Michael McDowell. My goodness, after getting the top 5 in this race a couple of years ago, when Daniel Suarez won, of course, winning at the Indy Road Course last year, he's always been great at road courses, just like he's always been great at super speedways. But it must be so vindicating to now have won at a super speedway and a road course. And it seems like ever since then, it's just kind of, eased the tension there a bit. And we're really seeing that talent come to light. Next year, him driving for Spire Motorsports is going to be really interesting to see. I don't know if that's a better situation or worse. I feel like in this case here, I kind of hate to see him leave front row because I think they've developed a good rapport and he's able to be this consistent. But they must be looking at the playoffs. I mean, obviously, they've fallen short on that in their 2 runs at it there. So we'll see if it works out for him in that case. Speaking of which, all 3 Spire cars finishing in the top 20 was pretty surprising too. We may not have seen a whole lot out of all 3 of them, but LaJoie finishing in the 11th spot, Zane Smith in 16th, and Carson Hocevar in the 17th spot there was really solid. The 2 Legacy Motor Club cars starting in the final row, definitely another bit of frustration for those 2 entries there. Eric Jones ends up in the 19th spot. And John Hunter Nemechek, I heard he actually spun the oil from Denny Hamlin's car. I did not see that personally myself, but John Hunter listed the 29th spot there at the finish. He was at the back of the field for really much of the distance there, which was unfortunate because he had a beautiful car. That Save Mark car looked really good out there. Will Brown, we talked about Cam Waters, the other Australian in the field there. Will had all kinds of problems out there, spinning off the track at one point. He was pushed onto the pit road, completely coasting. Car shut off there, dropping further back in the order. Sound like electrical issues from the social media post that was put out there recently. Will ends up in the 31st spot. Again, certainly not the day that either of those teams wanted, but it was so exciting to see them out there. Would have loved to talk to both of them after the race. Unfortunately, we kind of missed a connection on that. I was pretty close to catching Cam Waters there after the race. He was either his family or his sponsor representatives there talking. Waited for him by the hauler there, but just didn't quite make it there. So I didn't want to miss out on catching anybody else there afterwards. But I thought it was a very interesting race. I think it had a little bit for everybody. If you just wanted to see a bunch of incidents, a bunch of cars driving off course or anything like that, you got that. And if you wanted to see a strategy call and a pretty good 3-way battle for the lead, the kind of thing I haven't seen in really at this track since the old Jeff Bodine, Ricky Rudd, Ernie Irvin thing that you saw in After Allen. Just a tremendous battle up front among 3 very talented drivers. You may wonder why Chris Buescher is up there. You may have forgotten the fact that he's a winner at Mid-Ohio in the Xfinity Series and that he himself, like McDowell, was top 5 in the 2022 race at Sears Point. So he did a fine job out there too. So many drivers got featured in this, and so many had interesting moments. The battle between Suarez and Chastain off of turn 11 to end one of the stages there was really exciting to see. They're just going door to door off the corner there. Just a really, really interesting deal out there. So I very much enjoyed it. I hope that came across in the social media post. I know the ones on Sunday got posted out of order. That seems to always happen. Whenever I try to post pictures there from the track, it's usually okay on Friday and Saturday, but on Sunday, things just get so locked up out there. The posts just kind of get loaded out of order. I got to post them afterwards or something like that. That was just kind of the way that all kind of turned out there. Regardless, that was definitely an interesting part of it. Let me just take a moment here. Alrighty. I apologize. I've dried the heck out of my lips this weekend here, so it's a little it's a dry heat out here at Last Car Headquarters. I can assure you that. But we'll plug right away here. Again, yeah, I mean, a really interesting race. I mean, it had a little bit of everything. Again, you have early exits. You got mechanical issues that were on the uptick. That was something I was kind of expecting coming into this with the higher speeds, and maybe, again, I wasn't really necessarily thinking engine issues, but just mechanical issues, just the cars just beating themselves to pieces here, coming around the track there. Even in maybe some of the races that feel kind of boring, we've still had some mechanical issues like that. You just don't see it on TV. Tyler Reddick, when he drove the 8 car, had a run out here a couple of years ago where he was running up in the order and doing pretty well, went to the garage area, had a left rear brake issue, and the team had to take that off and replace it with something else, and seeing him come back out on the track there multiple laps down. Incidents like Cole Witt bouncing off the outside wall, coming in with the right side of the car torn up there, but didn't draw a caution flag, so it probably didn't even get shown on TV. I think really when they cover a road course race, they should really focus on that. I think they had plenty of stuff going on in there. And obviously when it's a big name like Denny Hamlin, we saw this with Bubba Wallace as well, played out almost exactly the same. The driver was brought in, was standing behind the hauler when they were waiting for the car to come in on the tow truck. Actually, it was almost a mirror image of what happened with Bubba Wallace. Also with AJ Allmendinger, when he drove the 47 car. I guess that was the same too, when he had the transmission issue, the missed shift there that caused some engine damage in that one. It was definitely a different scenario out there, but yeah, I mean, it was interesting to see that play out. And again, you had just so many cars in the garage area. Didn't really have any situation where somebody went in the garage and came back out, unfortunately. I mean, the restrictions of the crash clock have fundamentally changed what's happened out there. But the demands on these cars, and when you look at the race results there, you see it's not just all crashes. I mean, again, the transmission, steering issues, suspension, so forth. Things were falling apart on these cars, and the race is just long enough that in that final stage that could really kind of become apparent. And that ended up being kind of the story there too. Yeah, a lot of retirees, a lot of drivers with beat up race cars. And that was about as complete of a Sears Point race as you're going to see. It doesn't have to be a photo finish or a first-time winner or anything like that. And Kyle Larson was not by any means an underdog in this. He was certainly got the most cheers from the crowd on Sunday. Yeah, and what a crowd it was. I mean, I know that you hear this from a lot of tracks. We saw the race at Gateway have a great turnout and other events earlier this year. That carried over to this one, too. This was probably one of the biggest crowds I've seen. And you'll see, you don't have to take my word for it. You can see the pictures I was posting from pit road there and how full the main grandstands were, and also the ones in the outfield, whether it's in the S's, turn 7. I don't know if I got a shot at turn 2, but I know it was up there for qualifying there. A really great crowd and everybody very excited. I don't know how many people were regular race fans or first timers out there. You saw a mix of new and old merch and younger and older fans. You had one person there that was there for the 251st Cup race, not just NASCAR weekend, but a Cup race dating back to Riverside in 1983. He said his 250th was unfortunately the Coke 600 that was cut short last month there. But tremendous turnout out there, and I think the track staff did a fine job out there. Yeah, and again, it's a race that I will again tell people that they need to check out. Especially if you think the track is boring. If you think the track is boring, I think there's even more of a reason for you to go out there and see it. And I don't think it's simply. I will admit some bias there since it's the home track and everything. And obviously I will concede that, yeah, going to a racetrack is always going to be better than seeing it on TV. But I think if you really look and see how much other stuff is happening and how much you're missing out on, especially in this broadcast, because I was seeing on social media between kind of running in and out of the media center there, it was, there was a ton of that was going on there. Whether it was mechanical issues and other drivers just running over each other out there. It was really exciting, and I really enjoyed it, and I hope that came across on the social media account. I also want to take this opportunity as part of this here to thank our staff writer, Ben Schneider, for his hard work out there at the track as well. He did a great job with the Arca West coverage. You'll see his article that was posted yesterday along with mine for Xfinity and Cup. So if you want the last place roundup on that, all that's been covered, of course, we're doing this show the day after the Sunday race, and of course, well after the announcement that there were no technical inspection issues after the Cup Series race, and Denny Hamlin taking the last place finish. Again, the 9th of his career, his 2nd in a row at Sears Point, and his 3rd in a row on a road course, if you include his most recent one being on the Charlotte Roval last fall. So again, I can see where he has his frustrations in racing. I believe it's also his 3rd straight finish of 31st or worse at Sears Point. He hasn't finished top 30 in any of the next gen races at Sears Point. So, the all-in effort each year becomes a bit of a challenge at this point of the season there. We'll see if that's the case again next year, and that'll definitely be another story I plan to cover. And I hope to do it from the KOA campgrounds, staying at there too. This is by no means a sponsored thing at all. Quite the opposite here. But had a great time out at the campgrounds there, staying there for the weekend. I hope you guys enjoyed some of the posts there. I shared a picture, some video there of the inside of the cabin we were staying in. Really enjoyed that. I think they they have a great setup there, and it's about half an hour from the racetrack there. So, which is actually even closer than our old place out in Antioch was. The original Last Car headquarters was even further away from the track than that. So that made it a pretty relaxing weekend too, which was great. Especially since it was much cooler out there than it's been out here. Even today, it's been just roasting out this direction. But, again, I haven't watched the broadcast yet, so I can't really comment too much on it. I heard a little bit of the broadcast from the media center there. It sounded like there was still some missed shots and so forth there. I guess I could comment more on that after I watch that later on, but we'll find out. I like Brad Keselowski's paint scheme, the top secret car that ran there, the Despicable Me scheme. I've never seen any of the movies there, but it looked like they were having a lot of fun. And big thanks to Keselowski for talking with me there. Again, I definitely wanted to do a follow-up after Kansas, especially after releasing the Kawicki project there that I had mentioned to him during our meetup. So that was the reason. That was the story behind the picture. And again, thank you to Ben for taking the picture there during that conversation. That was a pretty cool deal from all of that too. Let's see. I'm just thinking about how I want to do this. We should get in the Xfinity Series race because there's a ton on that. And I'm seeing a lot of questions on here about Shane Van Gisbergen and everything here. Joseph Gooch, thank you for your support there, the videos as well. I appreciate it. We got much more on the way. I know I was telling a lot of people about other things I was working on, whether it's the next episode of 500 Days on Texas or also my standalone video that's going to be on the history of Country Time Lemonade's involvement in NASCAR. Both of those are getting very close to being produced here, so we'll get that together. I think that'll be definitely another part to talk about here. Let's see here. Anything else stand out on that? I don't think so. Again, kudos to Chris Buescher for the strategy. I mean, again, it almost paid off, but again, I've seen that happen so many times. I remember Ricky Rudd trying to do it in 05. He drove for the Wood Brothers, but it was actually the exact same car he won with for Robert Yates in 2002, and he almost pulled off the win again in that car. That would have been incredible, and of course, it would have been the last win of his career because 2002 ended up becoming his last of the career after Tony Stewart passed him at the end. And Stewart himself had to hold that car in gear because the transmission was failing on him there. So you had to reel just kind of a crazy battle there towards the finish where Stewart was ultimately able to pass Rudd in the closing laps. Something very reminiscent of this race, although it didn't have a third car behind them that was running even faster laps like Kyle Larson was in this one. Again, great battle at the end, and really enjoyable, very thoroughly captivating race there from start to finish. So kudos to everybody involved for sure. The Xfinity Series race is a bit different. Certainly, it kind of reminds me of, I guess, what we saw at Atlanta earlier this year, where one of the rare occasions from this season where the Cup Series race was better than the Xfinity Series race. Although the Xfinity race had its share of interesting moments there as well. I wouldn't call it a boring event by all means. First and foremost, the last place battle in that one was absolutely exhilarating. Watching the opening laps there as Garrett Smithley had started in the back of the field there for the JD Motorsports effort, and he had Haley Deegan and a couple other drivers ahead of him. And the first 20 or so laps, that was pretty much the same situation. Everybody was just kind of hanging in there. And they were losing ground to the leaders because Shane was just so much faster than the rest of the field. And Ty Gibbs just struggling to keep up there. But actually, both of them breaking away from the pack had an even more old school road course feel. I'm thinking in that case back to the era of Richard Petty's and Bobby Allison's, or even a Dan Gurney going up there and just absolutely walloping the field out there. Van Gisbergen was outstanding out there in what we've seen in his first laps in a stock car over at the Sears Point track there before. Would have been great to see him run in the Cup Series race. Apparently there was a conflict there because of some testing he performed earlier this year, but undoubtedly he would have been a factor in the Cup Series race as well if the strategy had worked out as well as it had at the Chicago race last year. But just impressive. Put on an absolute clinic out there. But meanwhile, at the back of the pack, you did have some adversity that was stacking up there. An electrical issue for Hailie Deegan, center behind the wall. I know Deegan's been getting her share of criticism about the way this season has gone, especially compared to Brett Moffitt's season last year with that same AM racing team, where Moffitt was just outside of playoff contention as well as contending for wins. This year, I think it's just been terrible luck on the 15 car there. I wouldn't really put this on the driver. It's certainly not in this case here, where she had lost 7 laps because of an electrical problem. Went into the garage area. Crew was on hand there, switching out what looked to be a wiring harness, and bolting that back into place there and sending her back out. And to her credit, ultimately gaining 6 spots in the process, because we had so much more issues there for the rest of the field in the meantime. The next driver that was dropping to the back of the field there was Sammy Smith. Smith pulled behind the wall shortly after Deegan returned to the race. There were reports that there were issues with the axle. It was first the left rear axle, and then the right rear axle was also being replaced. He had both rear wheels off the car, and the crew was working on it. They were pretty much by themselves on the back half of the garage area out there. The crew trying to get the repairs done as quick as possible. Then all of a sudden, maybe about 5 or 6 laps later, we get the report that there's a big pileup coming off of turn 3, similar to what we saw to an extent in the Sunday race, but even more so when you had a couple cars spinning out on a very blind spot. If you watch the green Sears Point video I posted on this channel, you'll see when you come up to that rise, the track just disappears, and you just don't know where it's going or what's on the other side. And if 2 cars are spun out in the middle of traffic, there's very little you can do. I think that's why you could see a pileup as big as this one turned out to be. Obviously, among the drivers that got some serious damage in it were Brandon Jones, Josh Williams, and Jeb Burton. And so this was something that was still kind of coming together at the same time. I was standing behind one of the crew members, and then you had a NASCAR official there literally writing down the numbers of the cars that were involved in the incident there, which is interesting. I kind of like to learn more about where that fits in with timing and scoring. Certainly you see in the official race results, it'll show who is involved in each accident. And it seems to be like just, it's literally a person just writing it down, and then that gets added over to the list. I know there was things that looked like it was going to be the 20 car that was involved in it. Turns out it was the 81 of Chandler Smith, and very similarly painted Toyota Supra that was involved in that incident. And just crazy to see how that all shook out. And then on top of this, again, Sammy Smith's crew is still working on it. By this point, they pretty much got both new axles in the car. And then all of a sudden, a fleet of tow trucks come in. Jeb Burton's car was already in the garage on the other side. They had the opposite bank of, haulers there. And then on this one, you had a line of 3 tow trucks coming down a downhill stretch into the rear entrance, which is a really treacherous path. I'm surprised they actually went with that. I would have thought they would have tried to go through the turn 11 entrance, which is much flatter, and you can just kind of go up a little bit of a rise past the souvenir store that's out there, and then into the garage that way. But I guess this was the more attractive option. But regardless, 3 very battered cars coming in there. Ty Gibbs, after leading 26 laps, inexplicably got in the back of the car in front of him. I believe it was Jeb Burton, and just triggered just a massive mess there. Gibbs' car with the whole front of the car taken off. He credited with 1 more lap completed than both Williams and Jones. Jones was classified behind Williams, even though he qualified 1 spot ahead of him. Must have been running behind Williams there at the previous scoring loop. That would be my estimation as to why the scoring went that way. But regardless, Jones was the lowest classified of them. Deegan, by this point, was back on track, so she passed all of them. And then Sammy Smith took off right in the middle of all these other cars that are just, getting loaded up on the haulers here, and the team's trying to piece them back together. The 8 car just takes off and starts making up those laps and gets around all three of them. Doesn't get around Haley Deegan, finishes in the 33rd spot, Deegan in 32nd, and Jones ends up your last place finisher. I did not speak with Jones after the wreck. I decided to just go ahead and follow with the teams that were back there and just kind of track what was happening with them. But you'll see, I don't know if Jones got interviewed in the Xfinity broadcast. Again, haven't seen that one yet, but I'll be interested to see how all that plays out there too. All right, right on, Ben. I see your message there. Safe travels for sure. I know SFO could be a little bit busy there, but again, really enjoyed working with you this weekend and hope to again very soon. So, yeah. But yeah, really dramatic battle there at the end for the Xfinity series. Last place finish there. And this ended up being, spending more time in the garage area. Very similar to what we saw last year with Parker Retzlaff's last place run when he had a mechanical issue and the crew basically spent the entire race working on it there and just ran out of time to get him back on track to gain any ground. But regardless, they had Jones, Williams, Burton, and Gibbs in the bottom four. Thomas Annunziata making his Xfinity Series debut, indeed his NASCAR National Series debut, after that second place run in the ARCA opener at Daytona. That was one driver I wish I had actually spoken to. I just didn't line that up correctly. I was hoping to catch up with him after the race, and he fell out in the closing stages, and I didn't even get a really good shot of his car, really. I talked with Garrett Smithley on pit road, his teammate, but not as much there. But Annunziata ends up in the 34th spot in his series debut. We'll see when the next start is going to be for him, if he's going to run some more road courses. Obviously, with the rest of the schedule coming up here, we'll find out if that's going to be the case. So the only 5 cars out of the race were the bottom 5 themselves. 26 laps led for Ty Gibbs before his incident, dropping him back in the lineup there. This leads me to Austin Green, and I definitely wanted to spend some more time on this as well. Actually, before I get to Austin Green, I guess we should definitely talk about the race winner as well. I know I talked about Shane Van Gisbergen and how smooth and fast he was out there. Even in qualifying, he looked like he was going really slow. But again, I think the broadcast booth was very right to mention this. That's because he was just so smooth. And, that reminds me of something that was very much said of drivers like Marcus Ambrose, drivers like Juan Montoya. They just know the right way to get the absolute most out of these cars. And they're not like screeching the tires and getting sideways here and all those things. I mean, some drivers can make that very successful. Rusty Wallace was one of those. Robbie Gordon was another. But then you have other drivers that are just very skillful and very precise. And Ambrose was like that. And Shane Van Gisbergen is very much like that too. It's fascinating to see that in person after his thorough domination of the ending of the race at Portland. And then in this one here, I mean, just to win the pole and then just kind of run off from the field for most of this race, not being passed under green a single time, leading 32 of the 79 laps. An absolute clinic of Dan Gurney-like proportions that we saw at the track there. I was very impressed. I loved his shove of Austin Hill at the top of the hill. Honestly, I'd forgotten about Coda, but he hadn't. And when he was asked about it, he said 100%, and that was it. And he didn't say a thing more. And that was, I like the attitude, and I like that he's messing with a driver that's probably had it coming for a little bit here in Austin Hill here. He's definitely rattled his share of cages and, just kind of, let stuff, let the chips fall where they may here. The burnout after the race and that iconic picture that's now circulating here of Hill sticking his middle finger out there as Van Gisbergen continues to do a burnout in front of him there. This is probably not the most expected rivalry that we expected to see in the Xfinity Series between this road course upstart and what I would say, even as a detractor of Austin Hill's, undoubtedly the most talented super speedway driver in the Xfinity Series right now. It's an interesting cross-disciplinary, cross-cultural, I guess, difference between the two. And we'll see what the rest of the broadcast season does with it, if anything, for the rest of this campaign. But well-deserved win for Van Gisbergen. Love to see Sheldon Creed get in the second spot, although I'm sure he would, he's counting down the days to the win. I think this was a more satisfying runner-up, at least from his post-race interview, showing the speed that he had and able to climb back up there. And then Sam Mayer, Austin Green, and Austin Hill, your top five indeed. Coming to the checkered flag, Sam Mayer and Austin Green were side by side going for the third spot. Mayer was just ahead of him there, but Green made him work for it there all the way to the finish. And so I do want to dovetail back to Austin Green in the video that I posted on Sunday. Coming down to the last few stages of this race, seeing Austin Green on the front row there, seeing him in the mix was really, really cool. I mean, we'd seen him get the seventh place run at COTA earlier this year. He was top 15 at Portland just last week. This was a driver and team that I was very curious about coming into this because I knew very little about this. We have seen the Peterson Racing team attempt to enter a race or two. I believe they tried to enter the Roval last year with Andy Lally as their driver. Missed the cut, didn't have any owner points. So this year they team up with Jordan Anderson's team. And I know I got some questions about this, about, thinking that, oh, wait a minute, is this Peterson team, is it separate from Jordan Anderson? It's like, okay. So I'm glad I was able to get some clarification on this. And big thanks to Jordan in particular for filling me in on this here. So the situation is this. So Jordan Anderson's team runs, of course, the 27 for Jeb Burton and the 31 for Parker Retzlaff, the two full-time efforts there. The 32 car that Jordan Anderson himself drove earlier this year at Daytona and has run part-time since then. It's just their part-time third entry. Of course, those runs do give them some points in the owner points, which means any other team that they can attach to that is going to help. Earlier this year, they did run Mike Harmon's car at looks like Atlanta, Phoenix. What was it? It was definitely Atlanta and Phoenix. Beyond that, I'm not sure if that was the case. I think it was just a couple of starts there, but it was with Mike Harmon's team and with their equipment. That I pretty much suspected that to be the case because just ran a flat black car. It seemed to have the same graphics as Harmon's team. They would run some of Harmon's sponsors like the Lerner and Rowe backing, and they seem to have similar mechanical issues there as well, dropping them back in the order there. Apparently there was some kind of disagreement there between the two of the teams, or some kind of something that was just worked out really between those two programs that got Harmon's team into the show for a couple of these efforts, but again, it was helped with 32. So this was another situation here with this Peterson Racing team, very similar to this. So again, much like with the Mike Harmon deal, it was just using the owner points and the numbers from the Jordan Anderson team, the 32 team that started the year. But the Peterson team had their own hauler, they had their own crew, they had their own car, and they had their own driver, of course, Austin Green, son of David Green. And so when you see that yellow car out there, that Jordan Anderson's team is helping out. We've seen some of Jordan Anderson's crew actually helping out with that effort, or also helping out on pit road, or something of that matter. But the Peterson team has its own pit box and everything else from Trans Am, and they have this Cup car, and so they've been able to run that here. And now, without having to miss the field and worry about owner points and all that, it's thankfully given Green some opportunities to actually make some starts this year. So again, he had these great couple of races. And in Saturday's race, I was excited to see him running that well up there. And I was worried it was going to be one of those situations where, again, Sears Point is a brutal track in this sense. You can have a driver that's really having a great run, and then something comes apart at the end. You think about Jerry Nadeau in 2002. You think about Marcus Ambrose in 2008 and 2010. Any number of things can happen there in this case. And thankfully, in this case, they did not. And Green had a fantastic run. One of the biggest stories out there. I'm glad to see the TV showed up and everybody was interviewing Austin Green. But something that didn't seem to get as much attention was David Green. So when I saw that about 5 laps to go, and it came down to it, I saw that he was up there. It's like, okay, well, this is going to be pretty cool. And this is going to be a career best run for this Peterson Racing team. And by then I'd talked to, some of the higher ups there on the team, and they were excited about this and what chance they were going to have a good showing, even though Green qualified back in 22nd there. So I wanted to go down there and see how it went. Luckily, I took a picture of their pit stall before, so I knew where they were parked. So I came down there and I started filming it, and I wanted to kind of get the reaction, kind of like I did with, other people have done before. And of course, I noticed as I filmed it that David Green was there. And for those of you who don't know, and you certainly know this from seeing the video, David Green, past Xfinity Series driver and winner and champion. Ran in the Cup Series briefly. Unfortunately, didn't work out. He definitely had his biggest success in the Xfinity Series, much like his other members in his family there, such as Jeff Green, of course, Mark Green, other competitors there. The Green family, very prolific in motorsports history. But much like a lot of drivers, I mean, not all drivers, but a number of drivers, has been a NASCAR official since then. And, I've seen him show up certainly a lot of times during the last place coverage. He's often one of the officials that shows up when a car is declared out of the race. So you'll see him there either taking the tapered spacer out of the car or just, working with timing and scoring, anything like that. David Green was there as a NASCAR official first and foremost. But you can tell also that he was there certainly as a fan, and more importantly as a father there, watching his son get closer and closer to his first top five and only his third Xfinity Series start. And so really, as I was filming this, I was just kind of focusing on him, and you'll notice that in the footage. Again, it's about a 7-minute clip that's put up on this channel here if you haven't seen it yet. So he was getting more and more nervous, and you could see he was getting excited, and he was talking with Mr. Peterson there, and and then both of them were standing. I got there with about 2 laps to go, and it comes down to the checkered flag, and they're like cheering for him, especially as he's getting alongside Mayer off the last corner, and that was great. So I just kept rolling, and I saw Green walk by. He walked right in front of me. Just huge grin. You could see it in the film there. He's every bit as excited as you would expect. I've seen this with Ryan when Dave Blaney was sitting there in the media center last fall when Ryan won the championship. Same energy for sure, if not more so. So David's come down there. Other crew members are giving him high fives and everything. He comes over, I think, Jeremy Clements' pit, goes over the pit wall, so I'm going there after him. And he's running down there, so I'm just running after him. Luckily, I tied my shoes beforehand. I was wearing green sneakers as it happened too, so I don't know if that had something to do with the timing. But we came down there, and Shane Van Gisbergen's doing his burnouts there on the front stretch. You got this big haze coming down here. The cars are rolling up to the line because, of course, the first few finishers are going to be way down at the end of pit road. So quite a ways to go there, but getting down there and seeing him celebrate with them. And I was just thinking like, oh man, okay. It's like, I'm trying to, compose myself. I don't want to, because I thought back to, 3 before February. And there's a video clip, if you see in that there, where a guy's interviewing Adam Petty when he won his first ASA race. And, he was, clearly the reporter was really excited, but you don't want your excitement to take the words away from the other person. You want their excitement to come across. Like in that example, I felt like the guy was saying he's like, oh man, this is like the World Series. And he's like, it's like, no, I know you're excited, but you got to kind of put that aside a little bit. Let, Adam, express his excitement there, which he did in that case. And I don't think, it was really the biggest thing, but I kind of had that in my mind, but all I kept thinking in my mind was like, man, he's a wheel man. It's like, how did he do that? How do you get this finish this early? I mean, Sears Point, I've grown up at this track. It's such a brutal track, especially on newcomers, whether it's Xfinity or Cup or any other series out there. And Green didn't make it look effortless. In fact, he was involved in an incident in turn 11 earlier in the race too. But to get this done, and especially with this Peterson team that's put together this Xfinity program really briefly on this, it was exciting. So when I saw David, I was just kind of waiting for a moment. I didn't want to get in the way of anything. Looked like he had some family there. A team, crew members were working their way down there, sponsor representatives. I don't want to get in the middle of any of that. So I just trying to just film it and just kind of take it in there. Trying to focus more on just not have my hand shake the phone out of my hand. Cause I'm like, oh man, this is really cool. I've been in the middle of a couple of things close to this level of just raw emotion, like Daniel Hemrick's championship thing. Even on that one, I kind of stayed behind the pit wall, and I wish I didn't. But I'm glad that happened, because now when I see something that's in the move here, I'm not hesitating. I'm going after that one. You guys aren't paying me to stay behind the pit wall here. I'm going to try to get that thing for you if I can. So, you know, in this case, yeah, just went for it and, you know, filmed it and just kind of composed myself a little bit there. And there were a couple other people. Steven was there too. Somebody from Sirius XM was there, and I'm glad they were noticing that David was there and celebrating with him. And I was just kind of waiting for a lead, and I just kind of went for it. And I still said, "Hey, he's a wheel man." I couldn't. I was like, "Okay, what reel have been there?" And so, like, yeah, hey, how do you feel about this? I just let him have it. You know, let him have it there. And David gave a great interview in that moment there, and that was just so cool, very genuine. I just had the question, just let him go there, and I congratulated him. I was waiting to see if anybody else around me. I thought people were going to ask some more questions. I was almost going to think my next question was going to be like, you know, what was it like in your third Xfinity Series start or something like that? But nobody else had any other questions, so I just let it go and I just let him celebrate it there. So that was a really, really cool moment. I would have to say that was probably yeah, that's probably one of the most intense things I've seen. I've seen a lot of intense stuff in the garage area there, certainly on the other side of it there. But in terms of like, you know, great runs, I mean, I've talked to Tommy Joe Martins before when he had a great run at Phoenix a couple years ago. You know, but this one here to, you know, also have like this family aspect there too. And, you know, and I told David afterwards, after I stopped filming, I said, man, I've watched you and your family, you know, racing since I was a kid. This is crazy. But it was really cool. And I ran into him the next day. I ran into David the next day. Actually, even the next day on pit road, as the cup race was about to start, David was doing his job, and he was getting interviewed by another group. He had another couple of people that were doing a segment on, and I'm sure they were talking about Austin's run and everything there. And, you know, he still had the same smile, David did. And you could tell it was, you know, I'm sure they've been celebrating all night, but he was still fresh as a daisy for Sunday there. And I told him about the video, and he was really cool and thankful about it. And I said, look, you know, let me know if, you know, I gave him my card. So if he had trouble finding the video, I can send him the link and all that stuff. But he was real happy. He said it was such a challenge to be able to kind of juggle what he was doing as a NASCAR official versus, you know, of course, as a father trying to watch it there. So I hope he's seen the clip. I don't know if he has or not. I haven't received a message or anything, so he's probably found it. But I hope he has. And if he's watching, I hope, you know, that was just as exciting for me as well, I can't say it was just as exciting for me as it was for you, because I'm sure it was way more exciting for you, but it was a big moment. And I hope that came across in the footage. I just didn't want to, I really, really try not to make myself the story. I really don't need to be. I just want to really kind of, you know, see the moment and just let it see it for what it is. You guys can see it there too. So I hope that came across in that. So I think, yeah. And again, yeah, David Green's son. I had to remind myself of that too. It was like, yeah, I was thinking, you know, it's like, it's like, was it Jeff Green or was it David? It was like, yeah, it's huge, but you can tell just from the body language and everything, in that, just, you know, what a big deal, that was there too. So yeah. But, let's see, let me just kind of pull this up here in the meantime. But yeah. But yeah, nephew of Jeff and Mark Green, and yep, son of David Green. I mean, just a cool thing. I mean, I've run into Jeff Green before in the past, and you know, and certainly you know, more in the context of that, and you know, with the last place thing, with all that, and he was always really cool with that too. Just a great family. I mean, you know, a lot of these veterans in the sport are just, you know, real down to earth people out there. And yeah, and that's the story. I'm seeing reaction in the chat here too about, you know, yeah, people being surprised, of, yeah, him being David Green's son. Yeah, exactly. I don't think it's something that's been publicized enough. I'm glad that, I mean, I couldn't get to Austin. I was trying to interview him also after talking to his father. I just couldn't. I mean, and that was good. No complaints here. If he's getting the press and everybody, and the TV is there especially, I don't need to get in the way of that. So I'm glad that there was something out there, and it looked like there were plenty of clips. Plenty of other people were talking to David also, which is great. I'm glad that was out there. But yeah, it was a privilege to be there in that moment, and that was really cool. So I'm really trying to, you know, again, when I see somebody that's having like a really good run, I really try to kind of follow up on that, because it's not just entirely about the last place thing. I mean, you know, certainly that race had its share of drama as well, and we covered that. But sometimes at the end of the day, you know, you'll have like a pretty dramatic finish there too, and it'll really kind of bring things full circle there, at the same time. So we had that at the same time. But yeah, hopefully he gets a full-time deal. I think that would be huge. So yeah, it's just kind of a different situation there. But yeah, the Xfinity Series race was good. It had its own share of drama there. Yeah, again, we had the top five finishers. We had the bottom five. Everybody else in the mix there. We had there's a bit of a scuffle there between Ryan Sieg there after the race, and another driver out there at the end. I mean, Brad Perez ended up back in the 24th place finish there. Still finished on the lead lap. Poor Boris said, I know there was a lot of comments about said and like what he's doing out there and all that. Again, this man out here, I mean, he doesn't have to make excuses for anybody. If he wants to run, a race in the Xfinity Series 10 years from now, the man qualifies for the race and gets the car through practice and tech inspection. He deserves to be out there. And for all the team that went through that weekend, that was the other part of it too. The other garage intrigue there at the same time. Was how much both the Hendrick Motorsports number 17 and their immediate neighbors in there, the DGM number 92 team, had to get to even start the race. For Boris, a very hard hit in the turn one. Again, the turn one barriers definitely got a workout this weekend, whether it was a near miss or a very hard hit. It wasn't just, like the Casey Kane wreck that we had back in 2017 here. It was pretty physical out there for sure. But for Boris, that plain black car, the backup car from JR Motorsports, where it even had mismatched black panels, you could see in some of the pictures there. And they just threw on some white decals on there. That became like an instant favorite. I mean, everybody was jumping on that from the time Pockris posted the picture of the car, and I was following up on that too. It was definitely something that everybody wanted to see made into diecast or whatever that the case may be there. But everybody wanted their picture in front of it too. There were some other guys. You'll see a shot of a guy taking his picture in front of the car there too. He was really jacked up about how the 17 car looked there too. So in spite of not running the Ricky Hendrick paint scheme there on that one, there was still kind of an interesting way that all that shook out there. I mean, Boris, he had a rough afternoon. I mean, it reminded me very much of when Bill Elliott came out of retirement at Road America and he got bounced around out there. Look, I mean, the guy out there, I'm glad he got a chance to actually race the car out there, whatever the situation. And it may not have been the Hendrick car. He got sent to a JR Motorsports thing, and having to do a backup and work his way up from the tail end of the field out there. But Sears Point is a track that has been very meaningful to him in his career. The fact that he had run there in Trans Am and other series and sports cars and so forth, getting up there in the Cup Series, the road course ringer for those many years, taking over for drivers of Travis Carter and Doug Bowell and those others. Seeing his son grow up during that same time period there. And especially after last fall at the Roval, how soon people forget that he wasn't even able to even qualify for that race because they had a mechanical issue on the 17 car that weekend there. So I'm glad he even got a chance to qualify the car. And then when he finally did, that was a great effort for him. It was unfortunate at the same time there for Sage Karam, the low DNQ. Big thanks to him for speaking with me after the words. I'm sure he wanted to put that weekend behind him. An unfortunate deal, a third straight DNQ for the Joey Gase team. We'll see if they bounce back from that this weekend in Iowa, which I believe is Joey Gase's home state, if I remember correctly. So that'd be a good place for a reversal of fortune for sure. I haven't looked at the entry list yet to see who's driving the car this weekend, but we'll find out what the story is there. Carburetor issue was to blame there for Karam not making the show. It just killed their speed coming off the low-speed corners there. And Karam was very precise in his description of that. And also, he stayed around after that to cheer on his teammate from last week, and Ed Jones. Jones finishing the 15th spot, which I don't think I even covered really from this weekend. Solid run for him after a career best run at Portland. And apparently it sounded like, according to Karam, that Jones was actually driving the car that Karam ran last week before damage to the nose actually damaged the radiator in that one. So again, fine effort there for Jones on the weekend. One of the other drivers further back there. Parker Kligerman got a top 10. He was very anxious to find out what the point standings were in the garage afterwards. We were still waiting to get those reports back there at the time. But a fine showing for him and able to capitalize significantly in the owner points ahead of other drivers. Again, the 19 team, the 9, the 11, the 8, all of them back in the order there. A big turnaround there for him. Also, talking about DNQs, Leland Honeyman, after being, I think, the lone DNQ last year, got the Randy Young, the unsponsored number 42, one of the most underrated paint schemes out there. I think even when they don't have a sponsor on it, the car looks great. So I was excited to see that one in action. Finishing in the 29th spot there for him this time around. Preston Pardis bounced back from his last place run to 36 to get the 25th place finish. Spoke to him briefly. I would have liked to speak to him more. I saw him and his father there. Again, another father-son effort. As Dan Pardis was there this weekend, but they were so busy getting it. And I'm glad that I didn't get in the way, because that was what they needed to actually qualify the car into the show. So we'll meet up again there, I'm sure. Especially if he comes out here to Sears Point more often. That'll be fantastic. As it happens, his backup car, the 36 car that had the track bar issue, I was speaking with somebody else on the team, and the indication was that not only was it a track bar issue on the 36, but the chassis had broken in a spot, and to such a spectacular point on that 36 car at Portland that a crew member standing behind it could move the back of the car back and forth real easy just with their hands. So something had really come undone there. They had welded things together and got the car presentable at least, so they could roll it off the hauler there once Josh Balicki had problems. And this time with an equally spectacular issue there on the 92 car, a truck arm breaking that almost ripped the rear tires out from underneath that car, slid over a bump there in turn 7, caused some significant damage there, cut short his practice. They were going to get the 36 out and redecorate it and everything. Apparently NASCAR stepped in and they wouldn't allow them to run that back up. So they had to spend the rest of the day, even when the garage was closed, to finish getting that 92 car ready to go. And they did. And so a tremendous effort. Josh Williams was part of that effort. Again, we saw him work on that same car last year when he had mechanical issues. Hopping out of the car, grabbing tools, and getting things going. This year with him driving for colleagues, still did the same effort and helped these guys out. But they needed every bit of help that they could get. But the number 92 team, at the end of the day, still finished in the 16th spot after starting 31st. They deserve an attaboy for sure from the Xfinity Series race as well. So there were just so many great stories in this race. So much stuff that was happening. You had your share of adversity there. All of it very late in the day. I'm not a big fan of this race being so late in the day because it ends basically at dusk. It looks pretty cool at the finish. So I guess that's probably where it's going to stay there, at least for the visuals of it. It's a little difficult to cover, but hopefully if you don't have a long commute afterwards, it's not too bad. Let's see. Alrighty. So many great paint schemes, though. Really like Sam Mayer's scheme. He had like a My Arctic theme there. Kind of looked like Justin Allgaier's military scheme. He ran at the 600, but had some kind of interesting graphics on it. Austin Green's for sure had like foil red numbers on the doors. That looked really nice. Parker Retzliff's, this version of the Funkaway scheme is my favorite. The one with the big cloud around the 31. Kind of nice late model Saturday night shootout kind of look to it there. Lots of great cars. Blaine Perkins' car was gorgeous. I told him as much there on pit road. That auto park it scheme there. He was just happy not to be the last car stories. Preston Pardis was the same way too. Talking with him on pit road. That's pretty much my greeting whenever I talk to one of these drivers these days. But that'll certainly be the case there too. But exciting Xfinity race there too. Even though Van Gisbergen may have just been dominant, there was so much stuff that was happening behind him and so many other storylines. I liked seeing that Safeway car that John Hunter Nemechek ran too. That's another of my absolute favorites from this year. Was excited to see it go to victory lane at Fontana in that last race back in the spring. I'll touch on this a bit here in the Arca West race. We'll get into the trivia section here. And again, I have a giveaway as part of that. So if you want to stick around for that, we'll have that later on here in the show. This is separate from the magnet giveaway. It occurred to me I wanted to kind of distinguish that. That will still be coming up, if not later tonight, later this week here. We'll have that for you guys coming up here. So just to kind of understand that part of it here. So big thanks again to Ben Schneider for being part of our coverage this weekend. He was covering more of the Arca West race. Now, the results here on Racing Reference show a did not start to both Tony Huffman and Dave Smith at the back of the field here out of a 24-car lineup, this being the Arca West race. That was, okay, that's actually the Portland results. Let's get the Sears Point results. Are those up here? Yeah, so that was the previous week. So this week around here, 31 cars. Yeah, I'm just going to say there were more cars than this in the show. So Tony Huffman ends up being your last place finisher and actually credits it with brake issues on there. That was a catastrophic situation that was happening with that number 0 car there. He was driving the second car for Bobby Hillis. Big thanks to Zishan, who was working on the crew this weekend. He actually answered the call when Bobby Hillis announced that he needed some more crew members to help out the team. So he was actually helping out both programs, the 0 and the 27. And as I was coming down there, he was giving me some great information there. Zishan and I have crossed paths here and there. I didn't recognize him at first. I mean, because the last time I'd seen him, we were talking about Jennifer Jo Cobb's team a couple of years ago. Yeah, now he's grown up and he's working on these crews here. And so that was fantastic to see there. So, yeah, we talked on pit road there as the 0 was having problems, brake issues for the number 0. And talked with the driver, Tony Huffman, there as well. On the pace laps, if you want to talk about bad luck, like the bad luck that Denny Hamlin had on the Cup Series part of the weekend there, Tony Huffman spun out on one of the pace laps because he didn't have any brakes. And this driving in the second Bobby Hillis car. He took the green flag. He was about 20 seconds back of the field there and went back around there. And at that point was just kind of tiptoeing around the track, just absolutely a complete handful. This is kind of the way I was worried that my personal car would be when we did the green Sears Point laps back in the spring. He was kind of living it here at this time. But he got back around, made it back to pit road, and just parked the car at the pit stall there and climbed out. Since his pit stall was right at the garage entrance, which is short of the start-finish line, he wasn't credited with the lap completed, but it wasn't a did not start because he actually did take the green flag, even though it was well back in the order there. So Huffman ended up being your last place finisher. Hillis, who drives the bright fluorescent cars, usually runs a bright yellow one at the ovals and a bright orange one on the road courses. So he had the orange car out there, which was just gorgeous. But Hillis was actually running pretty solid. He was on the lead lap. Then a shock map broke, and that dropped him back in the order there. It says suspension issues ultimately for the reason he fell out in the 28th spot. Between him, Ryan Philpott and Todd Souza dropped out. Souza's car was actually parked right in front of the media center. There's kind of a little bit of a on-ramp that you have to get to the Xfinity Series garage, which is on the opposite end of the track from where the Arca West haulers are parked. But there's a little bit of a gap there where a car could park itself. I think Timmy Hill's truck was parked in a similar area on the other side of that ramp. The Truck Series race back in 2022, they were able to make repairs and get back out there too. So again, a track that's very different in how it organizes things in terms of even where vehicles are having trouble in the race. But that was the case. So Philpott, Souza, Hillis, and Caleb Schrader being your bottom 5 there in that race. Sam Mayer, who ran double duty in the Xfinity Series race along with Brandon Jones, the Xfinity last place finisher on Saturday. Mayer cruised to lead 37 of 67 laps to pull off the victory over Tyler Reif. Sean Higurani, the 12th place starter, finished in 3rd. William Sawalich in 4th. And Jack Wood rounding out the top 5. Wood, of course, in the Truck Series part-time with the... I believe with I was about to say with the Spire team. Is it with the Spire or still with McNally's? Because he runs McNally in the Arca West series. So regardless, top 5 finish for him in the number 16 there. At the same time, Brandon Jones finished 8th in the number 42, which actually had an unscheduled stop at the very beginning of the race there. Very similar to what we saw when I believe Reif was driving it at Kansas and had to pull behind the wall with an electrical issue and then get back into the race there. So the Bruce Cook effort has had some issues, at least in the race, the weekends I see him competing. But in this case here, able to recover with a decent finish. I also want to give a shout out to Travis McCullough. This is another driver I hope that I caught up with. I just didn't make a connection there. But he was the same driver that we talked about in 2022 when he drove for G2G Racing. And they had the issue with the drug test results not coming back quick enough and the truck not being ready and not completing any laps out there. McCullough was actually able to make an Arca West start here at the track. finishing the 10th spot there with the California Pneumatic Pump sponsorship. So great effort for him, a great finish for him there. Congratulations, in case you're watching there on that. Great effort there. Dale Quarterly came very close to a top 10 finish. Got spun out there at the end, ended up the last car on the lead lap in the 14th spot there. Other drivers further back in the order there as well. So a fine effort for several drivers in the lineup there, but of course Sam Mayer beginning his weekend on a high note. And that was the case there too. So yeah, again, really enjoyed the racing this weekend. I mean, there's a lot of great moments along the way. Met too many people to count here of just, how much fun it was to be able to talk racing there. And especially, it's good to have that experience there, especially since this is the last scheduled race that I'm going to be kind of covering trackside this season. We're already kind of looking ahead to next year and waiting for the schedule to come out so we can start kind of planning things going forward here. But I hope you guys enjoyed the trip there as well. I think, between doing the campground and the race there, that'll probably be what we'll keep doing for our trackside coverage going forward here at the same time for sure. So let's get into the trivia portion here because I know you guys are waiting for that. So I want to kind of jump into that. If you guys have any other questions that I didn't cover from this race weekend, I can get into that. I can show some pictures here as well. I'll probably save that to the end of the show here, just to kind of wrap things up a little bit. But I do want to kind of get into this, and we'll do some show and tell here at the same time. So here we go. So another thing to transition into this, I think probably a good way to go into that would be to talk about the After Allen video. Thank you so much for supporting that video. I got so many great comments on it this week. I've just pretty much everybody I talked to had either just seen it or was planning on seeing it. I know we just got the third part out just this past Wednesday here. So it's kind of a quick turnaround there going into the race, but I wanted to get that out before the Sears Point weekend. We're hearing from Tom Roberts and other members of the crew that were very supportive of the project there as well. I'm glad people are really enjoying it and also very anxious to see other videos on the channel. I've been seeing an uptick in comments on other videos on the channel, whether it's being things like 3 Before February or the Rise of the Field Fillers or 500 Days or anything else. There is much more in the works, and that's another reason this is our last trackside coverage of the season. I want to be able to spend some more time on that. Of course, we're still going to be doing the last place coverage here from Last Car headquarters and following the action for the Last Car Championship through November in Phoenix. And we will find out what happens. We still have 3 very close championships in those series here. But speaking of close championships there, it was a pleasure to really give voice to the Alan Kulwicki project. I'm not the only one that's covered Kulwicki. Kulwicki is a very rich subject for sure. For anybody that that knew him, sadly, he passed very early in the time that I followed the sport. I knew of him at the time of his passing. I was much more familiar with Davey Allison, who we lost later that year. And of course, if you want to follow more on his story, you could certainly do the best option there would be to check out NASCAR Man History's video that he posted last year on that. I think he did a fantastic job. I was getting requests to do an After Davey video. I'm not sure I can really improve on NASCAR Man's video in that respect there. There's a little bit of a story of what happened afterwards, but I kind of brought that up in the Alan Kulwicki video there too. So that would be another portion of that too. But yeah, I mean, and really being able to bring the story to the present day, really. Chase Elliott's win was something that once it happened, I mean, I was probably about 60% done with the video when that win happened. And I'd already made the trailer and I was kind of waiting for a good opportunity to post it. And that's when I posted the trailer was after that win and being the first one for Hooters since 1992. And then at that point we had an ending for the video and it really came together. So, I'm very pleased with the response there. And so big thanks to everybody on that. One thing I did as well this weekend to promote the video, and you'll notice that I showed this at one point in the video itself, was this card right here from 1993, the old one there that was designed by Mark Brooks. This was printed out after Kulwicki won the championship. Of course, you see the Winston Cup there in the middle there with Allen and the Hooters girls there sitting around the car. You also see on the other side the shot that was shown there, showing the crew members listed on here, and every other detail there from the championship battle that's also shown on this. So this is an actual card. Big thanks to the gentleman on eBay that was selling these. He had a whole bunch of these that was he was selling in groups of 10. So that's where that came from. So I had these that I was scanning in there, and I had a couple extra that I brought with me over the weekend, and I was handing these out to people that I ran into that were, people that were asking about the Kawicki project, or people that I talked to over the weekend. Handed a good number of them out. So big thank you so much. Just wanted to give something back to, to share with people, to thank them for their support there at the same time. And I am pleased to say that I actually have a few more of these on hand right here. And so this, ladies and gentlemen, is the giveaway for tonight. So we're going to pick out a few trivia questions. I'm going to try to find some good trivia questions here on our good old-fashioned NASCAR trivia device here. And I wanted to give an opportunity for anybody that is in the show here tonight that I wasn't able to meet at the track, or anybody else that wasn't at the track there, give them a chance to win one of these. So I'm going to pick out, I think I've got 4 of these here. So I'm just going to go, instead of picking a category, I'm just going to kind of go into this here and try to find 4 good questions here. And whoever gets the correct answer first on these 4 questions, you'll get one of these 4 cards. And also, whoever wins, these are not the only cards I have here. I have a couple extra here. Those are going to go to the person who wins. One's going to go to the winner of the magnet, and I'm going to have a second and third place prize for the magnet as well. So you'll have a couple of chances to win these. So if you haven't watched this show live, but you come in later to do to check in for the video for the magnet giveaway later this week, you'll also have another chance to win one of these here. So I want to make sure that as many people get these in their hands as possible, and I hope you enjoyed those as well. So that is the prize for tonight. So I'm going to go into the thing here, first things first, and we'll go ahead and I'm going to find some questions, and each one of these, we'll just do 4 questions here, and then those questions will be ones for each one of these cards. So hang on here in just a moment, and we'll get into that. Let me just kind of pick this out. Ooh, okay. I'm already getting one here that's already pretty good. I went into the tracks category. So again, late 90s deal. Oh, make sure we're not out of focus here. So this is pretty good. Yeah, I think a West Coast swing to the Roval date. That's possible. In the fall race, you could always have a problem with bad weather out there too. But I think that would be, again, I think you're probably going to have the same issue with the spring weather there too. But hopefully that'll be, I don't know if that's something that's going to be working out or not. They're probably going to keep the same date, I think, the way that things are looking right now. All righty. So for the first one of these Alan Kawicki cards here, so these hero cards here, here's the first question. So get your hands on the buzzers here, and we'll go ahead and jump into that. So this one we're looking just to kind of get yourself ready to put your answers in here. The question is, how many times, so we're looking for a number, how many times did Fords win NASCAR Winston Cup races at Phoenix from 1988 through 1996? Okay, let me read that again. How many times did Fords win NASCAR Winston Cup races at Phoenix from 1988 to 1996? Whoever gets the correct answer first will get the first of these cards. So again, the question, how many times did Fords win NASCAR Winston Cup races at Phoenix from 1988 to 1996? I'll give you guys some more time here to go ahead and get your guesses in. How many times did Fords win NASCAR Winston Cup races at Phoenix from 1988 to 1996? All righty. Let me get this over here. I just got to get a list together here in the meantime. All righty. Okay. How many times did Fords win NASCAR Winston Cup races at Phoenix from 1988 to 1996? I think we got enough guesses here, so we'll go ahead and get into this here. All righty. And the answer is 6. 6 is the correct answer. And I'm looking here. Cityverse. I think it looks like it's you. How many times did Fords win NASCAR Winston Cup races at Phoenix from 88 to 96? This says 6. Cityverse. Looks like you are the first winner. So congratulations on that. Definitely to make sure you do this here, you can send your mailing address either on my DM on Twitter, or you can send it to my email address here on this. I'll go ahead and put it in a, let me see if can I put that in a pinned thing? That's probably a good way to do that. Let me get this here. Make sure. There we go. Oh, almost misspelled it. Can't do that. Or there we go. Alrighty. So yeah, so I'll go ahead and do that. And so yeah, if you need my Twitter handle or my email, that's fine. You can go ahead and contact me, Cityverse, on that. Just anytime there on that after the show here. So we'll do that. So that's our first question. Let's see if we can get another good one here. Okay. This is another good one. Okay. All right. So now we're going to look for a name here. So just a name. We'll give you a category on this. All right. And of course, yeah, different person for each winner here. So we'll do that. So we got Cityverse as our first one. Here comes our next one here. So, second question. Get your hands on your buzzers here. Go ahead and get ready for typing in the answers. First one to get the correct answer will win another of these Kawicki cards. All right, here it is. Who was the first female to drive in the Slim Jim All-Pro Series in 1991? Let me read it again. Who was the first female to drive in the Slim Jim All-Pro Series in 1991? Definitely go ahead and jump into the chat here and get your pick in there. Who was the first female to drive in the Slim Jim All-Pro Series in 1991? Go ahead and just make a guess. If you don't know the answer, that's okay. Jump in and send in a guess, and you may be right. I actually don't know what this is either, so this will be something of a learning experience as well. I want to pick something that's going to be challenging here. Who was the first female to drive in the Slim Jim All-Pro Series in 1991? And I will be, again, first person to get the guess right will be the winner on that. So try to put the full name if you can. That's okay. And I'm just saying that now. If you just put a last name, I'm not going to undo that there for you, but we'll go ahead and get these in here. Who was the first female to drive in the Slim Jim All-Pro Series in 1991? All right, we got guesses. We've seen a lot of female drivers showing up here. We got Shauna Robinson, Patty Moise, Lynn St. James, Robin McCall, Jennifer Jo Cobb. All righty. I'll read it one more time if you guys want to get some other guesses in here. We have, let's see, we have 4 of these, right? Yeah. Okay, so we're going to have 2 more questions here after this. So if you don't get this one, it's okay. We'll have a couple more opportunities. All right, here we go. Who is the first female to drive in the Slim Jim All-Pro Series in 1991? The answer is Tammy Jo Kirk. Tammy Jo Kirk. I don't think anybody got that. Excuse me. Tammy Jo Kirk is the correct answer. I don't think anybody got it. I don't see it there. That's okay. We'll just move on to the next question. Alrighty. Okay, so the second one goes unclaimed. That's okay. We'll move right on to the next one, and we'll have that be the prize to the next one here. That's good. I'm glad we got some challenging ones. Let's see. That was a little too easy. Let me try a different one. No. Let's try this. Ooh, here we go. Here we go. Yes, that's a challenging one. That's a challenging one. All righty. Okay. So here we go. So again, for the second card here we go. So we're looking for names again. So this is in the wild card category. The question is, get your hands on the buzzers. First person to get it correct gets the card. Who are the only brothers to each win NASCAR Winston Cup Rookie of the Year? Who are the only brothers to each win NASCAR Winston Cup Rookie of the Year? Try to put the full name if you can. If you can put the full name. So the first, again, the which brothers, just to make sure I understand which ones you talk about, because sometimes there could be brothers from different generations. So as long as I understand which two drivers you have there, that will qualify. Who are the only brothers to each win NASCAR Winston Cup Rookie of the Year? Who are the only brothers to each win NASCAR Winston Cup Rookie of the Year is the question. See, it's challenging. Now, this is a late 90s deal here, so try not to think about recent years, because this is like a 1990s device. I keep forgetting what the copyright is. 1998, it says here. So you think about 98 and earlier. Probably think 97 and earlier, if you're to really be honest. Yeah. Alrighty. Who are the only brothers to each win NASCAR Winston Cup Rookie of the Year? Alrighty, we got guesses for the Labonis, the Burtons, the Bushes, the Parsons, the Allisons, the Dillons. See, you get several good guesses. Schemes before their time. Yep, it's true, but still. We got the Bodines. There they go. Okay, here we go. I'm going to read it one more time. Who are the only brothers to each win NASCAR Winston Cup Rookie of the Year? Again, just guess. I mean, it's okay. There's nothing wrong with guessing. The only brothers to each win NASCAR Winston Cup Rookie of the Year. The answer is Ken and Ron Bouchard. Ken and Ron Bouchard. I don't think anybody got that one. Wow, this was too hard. I wouldn't have thought of that either. I was thinking the Allisons. Those of you guessing Donnie and Bobby, I was kind of thinking that too. But Ken Bouchard, he won Rookie of the Year. He beat Ernie Irvan. Ron Bouchard, I guess by winning, my goodness. Ken and Ron Bouchard. Yeah, I don't think anybody got that. I'm looking. Just want to make doubly sure. Seeing a lot for the Labonis. Labonis is a very good guess, but Bobby lost it to Jeff Gordon. And I think Terry lost it to Earnhardt, I think. And Phil Parsons, he lost it to Ken. I think he lost it to Ken Bouchard. No, it was 88 or 89. Yeah, I guess it was 88, because 89 was when he lost the ride to Cope. I guess that wasn't Phil Parsons' first year. That was just the year he won his first race. So yeah, tricky. Ken and Ron Bouchard. There you go. Yeah, no, that's tricky. That's tricky. Okay, all right. Next question. Let's go to another one. Still got 3 cards to give away. We'll just keep going until we give all 4 away. Don't worry about that. Here we go. That was a little too easy. Come on. Okay. Okay. Okay, now this is interesting. So again, keep in mind, this is a late 90s question. So the answer to this may well have changed. So try to put your throwback hats on and kind of think about this one. So here we go. Here's one. This is under the NASCAR category. And we're looking for position names. So like crew position names. So kind of think about that. So here's the question. What 2 members of a team are required to attend NASCAR's pre-race meeting? What 2 members of a team are required to attend NASCAR's pre-race meeting? Those are the questions. That is the question. So what are the answers? Let me read the question again here. What 2 members of a team are required to attend NASCAR's pre-race meeting? Okay. Just try to guess. It's like, okay, we see a lot of these for crew chief and driver. We see crew chief and spotter. See gas man and catch can man. Gas man and jack man. Yeah, see, here we go. This is interesting. See, this may not be entirely obvious. You never know. What two members of a team are required to attend NASCAR's pre-race meeting? There may be a reason. Well, I'm not going to say that. Yeah. Crew chief and tire carrier, driver and spotter. We got a lot of good combinations here. All right, we're going to read it one more time. What two members of a team are required to attend NASCAR's pre-race meeting? The answer is indeed the driver and crew chief. The driver and crew chief. So here we go. Now, okay. So Johnny Carlino, I see you put crew churd and driver. Now, again, you're very close. I can see that R and D are very close to E and F. What do you think, guys? I'm thinking, I'm leaning towards just, yeah, I think you had the right idea. Crew chief and driver. You were the first one there. It's just like just a typo there. I'm gonna give it to Johnny on this one. I'm gonna just be the judgment call on that one. So yeah, crew chief and driver. Yeah. So again, very close on that one. I don't want to do a technicality on that. Yeah, I give it to him, but no more going forward. Okay. All right. You're right. You know what? Actually, that'll be the compromise. So, okay. So I didn't have this as a rule before. So I'm not gonna do that. I don't want to punish anybody for getting that there. So Johnny, you win this one. So congratulations. So you get the air card. So make sure you send me your mailing address either by email or by text or by direct message on Twitter. Do not publicize it. We're not looking to do that. But yeah, definitely send it securely there that way, and we will mail this out to you. But yes, I agree. Laser Bro, you have a good compromise on that one. Yeah. So any of these, we're not going to. You have to make sure it's spelled correctly. So that'll be the same for the last two. Just make it more sporting, but also to be fair. So I think that's a good compromise. So yeah. So we'll give it to them. And then so just here. So if somebody doesn't spell it correctly, we'll make it challenging. It probably should be more challenging for the last two. So we'll do that. So we have two of these that are claimed, and we're down to the last two here. So that will be it. All righty. Okay, no, not that one. That was a little too easy. Let's see. No. Let's see. No. Okay. This might be, okay. This is kind of a sporting one. I think this will be a good one. This is also in the NASCAR category. This time we are looking for a dollar amount. So keep that in mind. So we're looking for a dollar amount. So make sure to wait for the answer here, for the question rather. It's not Jeopardy. Okay, here we go. How much bonus money did the driver with the most Bud Pull awards win in 1998? So we're looking for an amount of money. So and this one again, inconsistent with the rule we just had. It's got to be exact. You have to get the exact number. So, okay, so here we go. So go ahead and pick it. Here we go. Let me read it again. How much bonus money did the driver with the most Bud Pull awards win in 1998? You got to get the exact number. Exact number. Okay? All right, here we go. How much bonus money did the driver with the most Bud Pull awards win in 1998? All right, we got several good guesses here. I'll wait for a few more of them to come in here because this one's pretty wide open. How much bonus money did the driver with the most Bud Pull awards win in 1998? I'm going to look at the answer just to see if it comes up on screen here, so I'll know when to call it. Michael, thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed the Denny Hamlin article. I actually had a little fun writing that one because Denny's just become so outspoken. It's kind of fun to actually write about him a bit. And that's the thing. I think that really should encourage drivers to be more outspoken. So I hope that came across in the writing of it. I was writing that after the race, and I actually had a lot of fun with it there. I hate that he struggled there, and I'm glad he kept his sense of humor in the podcast. I enjoyed that. The 666 start, I don't know if I was the first to post that, but I'm glad that he saw it somewhere on social media. I don't know if he saw it from mine, but I definitely tweeted him in it. So we'll see. $1. Yeah. No, we're not quite that. We're not doing the Price is Right rules. But I do see the correct answer in these answers. So we're going to go ahead and call it. Here we go. Let me read it one more time here. How much bonus money did the driver with the most Bud Pole Awards win in 1998? The answer is $40,000. $40,000. And I see that as 611 Hornet. Looks like you got it. $40,000 is the correct answer. So you will win one of these cards here too. So definitely send me, again, your mailing address, either by email or to my Twitter DMs. And again, that information is in the pinned post there. So 611 Hornet, congratulations. I saw that engine blow up and thought, I'm glad Brock can enjoy more of the race now. I did enjoy more of the race. I think that's why I enjoyed it so much. I got to actually see a good portion of it. Even from the garage area. I mean, I was in and out of, Ben can attest to this. I was in and out of there a lot during all that. Kind of winged it. Hey, there you go. See, nothing wrong with that. To be honest, I was expecting more. I was too. I figured 6 digits sounded right, especially in 1998, but $40,000. That's it. Well, you guessing like 75 or 100? Yeah, that I would think that would be right. But 1998, different time. Alrighty, so we got one more for this. Now, again, I got a couple more that I set aside there for the magnet giveaway. That'll be later this week. Probably won't get it in tonight, but we'll get that up there. We'll be very soon. So again, we'll get one more question. Let me try to find a good one here to wrap things up. Alrighty. Okay, here. Oh, this is a good one. This is another good one. Okay, here we go. So it's like 7K per pole. Yeah, I guess so. Alrighty. So here we go. Last question here. So one more card up for grabs. Alrighty. So now we are looking for a name. We're looking for a name, and I will, to make this a little bit easier, I'll say it's a team owner name. So keep that in mind. Team owner name is what we are looking for here. So I'll read the question. Now try not to look it up. What owner gave Herschel McGriff a ride for 1954, his best and busiest year? What owner gave Herschel McGriff a ride for 1954, his best and busiest year? Okay, just guess. If you don't know the answer, just guess. There's nothing wrong with guessing. I'll keep reading it here. What owner gave Herschel McGriff a ride for 1954, his best and busiest year? 50,000 made sense for that. Yeah, that would be good. That's a good guess. Again, but yeah, 40,000 was right. And 611 Hornet got it to the dollar. What owner gave Herschel McGriff a ride for 1954, his best and busiest year? So think of a team owner. So again, in 1954, we got Petty's, we got Kiekoffers, we got Junior Johnson, Beryl Jackson, Dirt McGirt. I like that one. Junior Johnson, Herschel himself. Good guesses. Again, if you've won a card, it will go to the next person. And again, you got to get the name spelled exactly right. That is the other rule. So we're going to keep that in place. Raymond Parks is a guess. All righty. Lee Petty, several others here. Okay, the answers are kind of slowing down, so we'll read it one more time here. What owner gave Herschel McGriff a ride for 1954, his best and busiest year? And the answer is Frank Christian. Frank Christian, I think. Okay, hang on. Let me make sure. I'm just going to make sure nobody else guessed it here. Penny, unit, key cover. Around there we go. And it looks like Mark Bancroft. Looks like you got it, man. So, Mark, congratulations. Frank Christian. It is indeed the correct answer, and you got it. Yeah, it's always the pause and then the answers. Yeah, I think Demonic, I think you got yours in after I might have said it. But Mark, yep, you got it. I saw it come up there before I read it off. So you get it, man. So there you go. Mark, congratulations. There you go. So again, if you didn't win one of these, it's okay. I have a couple more. There's going to be given away for the magnet. We got a drawing. That's for the Patreon members, though, so keep that in mind there. That'll be a separate deal there for that. So anybody joins the Patreon, you'll be entered in that drawing as well. It's $1 or up. It's patreon.com/lastcar on Brock. That'll be most likely Tuesday or Wednesday. So again, congratulations, everybody, for winning these here. And again, big thanks to you guys for your support of the racing this weekend here. So we'll get those out this week. So we're just going to wrap up the show here in just a little bit. Before we do, I want to share something a little bit here from the show again. Big thanks again for everybody for tuning into the coverage here this weekend. Another thing that I did on the way out, I took a couple diecast pictures out on the grid. I know you saw some diecast from the video, the After Allen video, showing different paint schemes that run over the years. And I'll show you a little bit of LastCar history here. As we stayed over at the KOA this weekend, that was a place we used to stay for the NASCAR races back in the early 1990s. And when we went there, I actually brought something with me that I know I had back at the time. This is the first box I used to keep diecast in as a kid. And as you can see, I scrawled in pen on here, Days of Thunder Racers. And this was always something that I put diecast in. You got like an Easter sticker. There's my name engraved on this apple. I think this is like a pencil box that I had as a kid. So something like that. I mean, I feel so old bringing this out here. But I brought this to the track because it just happens to be, despite a pencil box, the exact perfect size to fit 64 scale diecast in here. So I have a couple from the After Allen video in here that I brought to the track. The Ricky Rudd car is the first Rudd car I picked up in 1994. So I brought that along. And then 2 Country Time cars, because that's one of the next videos that I have coming up on the channel here. Is again, history of Country Time Lemonade's involvement in the sport. So that'll be coming up. So again, you've seen some of these here before. So again, there's the Tommy Kendall paint scheme that was run in 1993. The Family Channel sponsorship that came on board. This is the Racing Champions version of the 7 car. I didn't put this in the video, actually. I guess I put the Matchbox version in there. But I was always partial to Racing Champions and the small wheels and the easy details there on them. So that was something I got a kick out of. We got 2 versions of the 68 cars, the Matchbox version with the big tires. This is closer to what you saw in the After Allen video with this style. This again with the Oldsmobile one here. And this is the Roaring Racer version of it here. So the bright yellow version, unfortunately, doesn't work right now. I tried to find replacement batteries, but it didn't quite have the right size there. I brought this out. I did take pictures with all these. I don't know if I posted all of them yet, but I should do that. And here's, of course, the Ricky Rudd. I think I posted this when Rudd got into the NASCAR Hall of Fame. The number is a bit scratched up on the doors. But yeah, they actually kind of held up pretty well over the years. So about 30 years later, you see some of the numbers kind of wiped away a little bit here. But I did take pictures with all these cars. And here's kind of a fun thing, too. This is, you can see how long ago this has been. This is where I used to test the cars out. Because even as a kid, I knew that these diecasts were not always made perfectly. And sometimes the tires would just not quite work well. So I drew this little track thing on it. It says test drive on it. And I would just literally just put the car on it and just roll it back and forth to see if like it would roll. And if it didn't roll right, you can kind of like pull on the, you almost do your own pit stops here. Talk about like what happened to Josh Bilicki and the rear wheels almost getting pulled out. You had to kind of bend on these a little bit and get it to roll right. This is just a different thing. I mean, you wouldn't really think about this today even with the complaints about quality control with like the Lionel diecast. But that was the thing. Just take this thing on here, just kind of do that. And then there's like a dark brown on here. I think it just did that for like a garage floor color that was on the bottom. So as you can see, just crayon on here. But yeah, I brought this box to the track and brought some die cast in it to take some pictures. I took some pictures with it on the track there as well after kind of the quiet track pictures there. I'll post those up after the show here. So I figured that would just be kind of a kick. So you kind of get an idea about, what things were like back in my earlier times here. I would bring this box to the track. If we bought some new die cast to the track, I would always kind of test them out in here. And it just fits 5 cars in here still even today, 30 years later, pretty well. So kind of a fun little detail there. I like to kind of show a little bit on this. I put some bubble wrap and wrapped a rubber band around it too to make sure it stayed closed. The little latch on the front of it here is long ago fallen away, so it doesn't hold on there. But the hinge is still good. Actually, I see a sticker on the bottom here. Lillian Vernon, made for Lillian Vernon, Mount Vernon, New York. I think that was the like an arts and crafts store back then. Wow, it's actually some of these nails are kind of loose on the bottom, but it made it through the weekend here and made it back home. So that was pretty cool. But obviously these days, die-cast boxes, much like the products themselves, become a bit more sophisticated. I didn't find any that really grabbed my my attention this week to test on there. But I did bring these out here for that and kind of check that out. So that was kind of another part of that too. So that'll about do it for the show tonight. So I really, again, I want to thank so much everybody I met at the track this weekend. Too many to count. Met so many people that just had the nicest things to say about the videos, how excited they are about projects coming up. Met people that were, checked out the books. Goodness. I mean, so many people I met, just too many to count here this weekend. People that work with PRN that were supportive. Talk with Brad Keselowski again. Actually, these cards, I didn't mention this with this too. When I was giving these out here at the track, 2 of those, one went to Brad Keselowski and one went to Chase Elliott. And I'll tell you this to kind of wrap up the show here for this evening. They had media availability. Big thanks again to Ben for giving me a heads up because I was looking for Keselowski that weekend. He let me know when there was media availability. At that point, he was just talking with Bob Pockris, kind of had wrapped up. And I was talking with him, and he was telling me some more stories about Alan, and we were kind of sharing a conversation. And big thanks to Ben for getting the picture there again. I gave him one of the cards there, and he was really pleased to see like the names of the crew members, which you can see. Actually, I did scan this into the video, so you can see the part that shows the actual crew members on there. And then Chase Elliott was in there, I think later that day, or maybe I think it was later that day, because that's usually when they did a lot more of the driver availability. I waited until after, because he had a much larger crowd around him. Then on his way out there, I just kind of caught up with him and did just kind of brought him out one of the cards there, and I thanked him for him bringing up Kawiki in Texas. And he said, "Yeah, no problem," and he really appreciated it. So he carried the card there and he brought that out. Hopefully his PR person was able to hang on to it, because I'm sure he was getting hounded for autographs once he got on the other side of that door there on the way back out. But I told him, it's like, look, you probably have one of these because you're Hooters guy now, but in case you don't, here it is. So he seemed to really like that. So again, it was a really, really nice weekend. It went very well. I really enjoyed the racing. About the only thing that was a problem was my allergies were kind of rough this weekend, so I was blowing my nose constantly. If you listen to Kyle Larson's interview in the post race, you'll hear somebody sneezing in the background. That's me. I forgot to bring my nose spray, and I was kind of paying for it this weekend. But if that's the worst thing that happens on a race weekend, I consider myself very fortunate as I do. So thank you so much, everyone that just made this really special. And while it's the last one we're going to do this year, it is absolutely not the last one I'm going to be doing in trackside coverage here. Very excited about the videos coming out later this season and returning to doing some more trackside stuff next year. And Sears Point is definitely going to be on that schedule. So look forward to that as well. So again, congratulations to our winners on the cards. Stay tuned later this week for the magnet giveaway. That'll be posted on my Twitter feed at Last Car on Brock. If you're interested in joining the Patreon, patreon.com/LastCarOnBrock is the website for that. The website, of course, is lastcar.info. The Arca West and Xfinity and Cup articles are already there. The entry list article will be up this Friday. And we'll continue to do the last place battle, starting with the Iowa action this weekend. And our next show is going to be next Sunday after the conclusion of the Cup Series race, the first ever at Iowa. We'll wrap up the action for that series and development series running that weekend. And we'll have a good time on the show here as well. So thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. Have a wonderful evening, and I'll see you all next Sunday. Oh, hang on. I'm sorry. Mark, I just saw your comment there. Yeah, it's okay. If you came in late on the card, we could do another question. If you don't want the card, that's okay. I totally get it, man. All right, but I do appreciate it. Yeah. No, if you don't want it there, that's okay. I can put this back up there. Again, I saw the comment, so we'll definitely make sure to mention that. Okay, so we have one more card left open. We are going into extra innings. We can do that. So, okay, don't touch that dial. We're still here. We got one more going there. But again, I do appreciate, Mark, if you still want to enter the drawing here for this one, I appreciate it there. But yeah, so it's okay. Okay. All right. So we'll go ahead and do this. So let me do the last one here and we'll do that. So, okay, let's get our question. So we got one more card up here and let's find a good question here to wrap things up. So again, sorry about the false ending there, but we'll go ahead and jump into this. That's the reason I put the ending in there. I kind of look at the chat again, make sure I didn't miss anything else. So let's make sure we do that. So Mark, again, thank you for that on that. And we'll go ahead and put that up for a drawing on that. But again, if you want to win it again, we can do that. That's totally fine. So let's see here. All righty. Let's make this a little bit of an easier question here. How about we do that? Because we had some really challenging ones here. So we'll just have this for this here. No, it's okay. You're good. You're good, Mark. If you want, and again, if you want to enter on this one, we'll go ahead and jump in this. So lightning round. Yes, Desert. I like that. Lightning round. All right, here we go. For the last card here. So how about that? The last card. I guess that's appropriate. So right here. So this one right here. We'll go ahead and do that. Alrighty. So here's the question. And we're looking, this time, we are looking for a number. Now, wait till I read the question until you get the number because, again, it could be a big number, it could be a small number. Let's see. So let's find out. All right, here we go. How many times did Bobby Allison win the Southern 500? How many times did Bobby Allison win the Southern 500? Guess in the chat here. First person to get it right gets the card. Okay? How many times did Bobby Allison win the Southern 500? That is the question. All right. Do we have any? Oh, gosh. We only have 20 people in chat. I'm worried so many people left. You thought the thing was over. That's okay. That's okay. We'll get it. We'll get it for the fourth one here. And again, this isn't the last chance on it either because we're going to have a couple given away with the magnet and so forth. That'll be revealed later this week. We'll get that together. Probably on Wednesday, I would think. That's probably when I'm going to do that. But we'll find out. All right. We got guesses for 4 and 1 and 5. Let's see. How many times did Bobby Allison win the Southern 500? Go ahead and put in all your answers. Whoever is the first one to get it correct will be the winner. And the answer is already there. The answer is 4. Jude Fernandez, you got it. Jude Fernandez, congratulations. So we'll get you on there. Get you on the list. So definitely don't post your personal information here, but definitely message me either on my Twitter feed or on the by email there. My contact's on there. So yes, 4, you got it correct. You got it right off the bat. First guess. 4 is the correct answer. So there you go. So there's the case. So so stay tuned again. So congratulations, Jude, on that. So all 4 of these are here. I'll stay tuned for those email addresses there or mailing addresses, whether it's email or by Twitter DM. So keep an eye out for that. And then we'll get all that set up for you guys. So again, congratulations on that. Big thanks to everybody for participating here. And again, thanks for following the action this weekend. And again, our next show is going to be next Sunday after the Iowa action, and we'll wrap up the first race of the NBC portion of the season here as well. And also get some other pictures I'll be posting on here in the meantime. So yeah, congratulations, Jude. And thank you everyone for tuning in. So have a great week, everyone. And we'll see you again on Sunday.